No collar, no microchip, no one searching. When Adam found the small Rottweiler puppy trembling beneath a broken park bench, it looked like a routine rescue, but what the dog was hiding would unravel his entire world. Adam had always been a dog lover. He knew the signs of an abandoned animal and couldn't turn a blind eye. But when he came across this little Rottweiler puppy, alone and shaking under that old park bench, he had no idea what kind of secret the dog was hiding. What he thought would be a simple act of kindness would turn into a life-changing journey, one that would test his courage, his patience, and his understanding of trust. Stay tuned, because what unfolds next will make you question everything you know about fate and loyalty. Before I show you what this brave dog did next, can I ask you something small? If you believe no dog should face their past alone, and that animals like Daisy are more than just pets, they're survivors, please tap that subscribe button. Most people scroll past stories like this, but your one click could help this message reach someone who needs it. It was a Saturday afternoon, one of those rare moments when Adam had a few hours to himself. He had spent the last week caught up in work, commitments, and life's usual whirlwind. Weekends were a chance to unwind, and Adam often found himself enjoying simple pleasures, like a stroll through the neighborhood park. He'd done it countless times before. It wasn't anything special, just a way to clear his mind and find some peace. But this Saturday felt different. As he walked toward the park, he noticed the usual sights: the old swings swaying gently in the breeze, the children's laughter echoing in the distance, and the dog walkers doing their rounds. Nothing out of the ordinary, yet something seemed off. There was a feeling, a pull, that Adam couldn't quite shake. It was like a quiet whisper in his gut telling him to head toward the far end of the park, away from the noise and chaos of the playgrounds and benches. Without giving it too much thought, he veered off the main path, walking past the few scattered trees and benches until he reached the old, forgotten playground equipment in the corner. This part of the park was rarely used anymore. The slides were rusted, the swings had been broken for months, and the air was thick with a sense of neglect. That's when he saw her. A tiny Rottweiler puppy, no older than a few months, was huddled beneath a broken park bench. Her small body was trembling, not from the cold but from fear. Her eyes, wide and haunted, darted around, looking for something, or perhaps someone. It was a look that Adam had seen before in abandoned dogs, the kind of look that told you the animal had known pain, had known what it was like to feel alone in a cruel world. She didn't notice Adam at first. Her head was low, her body curled up tightly against the cold ground, and her fur was a tangled mess. The poor thing looked like it had been through hell. Dirt caked her paws, and her once dark coat had faded to a dull brownish hue, marked with stains and streaks of mud. The more Adam looked at her, the harder his heart seemed to beat. How could someone let such a helpless creature end up like this? The thought of what this puppy must have endured made Adam's blood boil. It wasn't right. Dogs were supposed to be loved and cared for, not abandoned in places like this. He didn't even know why he was thinking about it so deeply. Maybe it was the way she looked, so lost, so small, so fragile. Or maybe it was the feeling that he had been brought here for a reason. He took a deep breath and stepped closer, careful not to make any sudden movements. He didn't want to startle her. The last thing he wanted was for this poor puppy to think she was in danger again. As he crouched down, he spoke in a soft voice. "Hey, little one, it's okay. You're safe now." At first, there was no reaction. She remained still, her eyes never leaving the ground. Adam extended his hand slowly, palm open, trying to show her that he meant no harm. A few seconds passed, then another few. It felt like forever. And then, just when he thought she might stay in that corner forever, her small, trembling body began to shift. She lifted her head a little, her gaze meeting his for the first time. Adam saw the fear there, deep in her brown eyes. But there was something else too, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. It was as if she was studying him, weighing the decision in her mind. Could she trust him? Adam's heart broke. He'd seen enough animals in bad situations to know that trust wasn't something given easily. It was earned, slowly, cautiously. The little puppy inched forward, one hesitant paw after another. The closer she got, the more Adam could see the extent of her fear. She flinched at every sound, the rustling of leaves, the faint hum of traffic in the distance. Even the chirp of birds seemed to startle her. Adam didn't move. He kept his voice calm, his body language non-threatening. He wanted her to feel like she had the choice to come to him. He wasn't going to force her. And then, without any warning, she took another step forward, her tiny body shaking so much that it almost looked like she was going to collapse. Adam's heart skipped a beat as she finally closed the distance between them, her eyes never leaving his. This was it. This was the moment. With a careful hand, Adam gently scooped her up, cradling her in his arms. She didn't resist, but her body was still tense, and she trembled uncontrollably. It was as if she had no idea what to expect, but she knew she was being taken somewhere else. Somewhere new. Safe, hopefully, but new. As he carried her back through the park, Adam couldn't stop thinking about what he had just seen. How did a puppy end up like this? She couldn't have just wandered here by accident. She must have been abandoned. But by who? And why? There was no collar, no tags, no identifying mark of any kind. Just a small, shaking dog in need of help. Adam knew that the chances of finding her original owner were slim. The park was filled with stray animals, many of them abandoned or lost, but none of them had seemed so broken. When Adam reached his house, he gently placed Daisy on the soft rug in the living room. She seemed to calm down a little when she saw the warmth of a safe environment. Though she remained hesitant, she looked around, her eyes darting from one corner to another, her ears flat against her head. Her small frame still trembled, and Adam could feel the weight of her fear. He gave her some water and food, hoping she would drink, but she just stared at it, her eyes still wide with uncertainty. It was as if she didn't trust the food, as if she thought it might be a trick. Adam's heart ached. He knew that kind of fear. It wasn't just hunger she was feeling. It was the fear of being let down again. For the next few hours, Adam tried to comfort her, but she barely responded. She was too afraid. He stayed close, not pushing her to interact, but just being there, letting her know she wasn't alone. Slowly, her body began to relax, and she stretched out on the rug, her eyes still watchful, but not as terrified. As the sun began to set, Adam went to the kitchen to prepare something for himself. He thought about calling a shelter, maybe getting Daisy checked by a vet, but his instincts told him to wait. He needed to make sure she felt comfortable, that she knew she was safe before he made any decisions. Later that night, when everything was quiet, Adam took a moment to really look at her. Daisy, he had named her that after a moment's hesitation, wasn't just any puppy. She was more than just a dog he had rescued from the streets. There was something in the way she acted, the way she flinched at sudden movements, the way she reacted to the smallest sounds. It wasn't just fear, it was trauma, deep, lasting trauma. He had no idea what she had been through, no idea what kind of life she had lived before that moment. But one thing was certain, Daisy wasn't just a lost puppy. She was someone's past, someone's story, and that story was waiting to unravel. What Adam didn't know was that Daisy's past wasn't as simple as being abandoned on the street. No, Daisy was hiding something, a secret that would soon reveal itself and change everything. The next few days felt like a blur to Adam. After rescuing Daisy, his life had taken a sharp turn. What seemed like a simple act of kindness, taking in an abandoned puppy, quickly morphed into something far more complicated. It wasn't just about giving Daisy food, water, and shelter anymore. There was something deeper, something darker, about the way she reacted to everything. It was as if her entire existence had been tainted by a past that was too painful to even begin to understand. At first, Adam tried to keep things as normal as possible. He went about his daily routines, work, errands, exercise, but Daisy's presence in his home slowly began to consume his thoughts. He'd catch glimpses of her sitting in corners, her eyes wide with wariness, as if waiting for something bad to happen. Whenever he walked into a room, her head would snap up and her body would tense. Her paws would pad softly across the floor, and then she'd quickly scurry back to a safe corner, almost as if she was hiding from a threat that only she could see. It wasn't that Daisy didn't want to trust him. Adam could see it in her eyes. There was a flicker of hope there, a flicker of belief that maybe, just maybe, she could feel safe again. But every time she started to come closer to him, to let her guard down, something would happen. A car would pass by outside, its tires making a loud screech against the pavement, and Daisy would jump at the sound. Her tail would tuck between her legs, and she'd cower into a corner, as if bracing for something terrible. Adam felt like he was walking on eggshells around her, unsure of how to reach the broken little dog, who had seen too much for her young age. He didn't understand it at first. He had rescued strays before, but none of them had reacted quite like Daisy. None of them had been so haunted. He thought it was just her getting used to a new home, but days passed, and Daisy's behavior didn't change. It got worse, actually. Adam found himself spending more and more time observing her. He would sit quietly in the living room, watching her as she wandered from room to room, never staying in one place for too long. There were moments when she would stare out the window, her eyes fixed on something in the distance, but whatever it was seemed to unsettle her. At first, Adam thought she was just staring at nothing, But then he began to notice a pattern. Whenever a car drove by, or when the sun began to set, Daisy would react. She would shift uneasily, her eyes fixed on the street outside, as if expecting something to happen. On the fourth day after Daisy's arrival, Adam noticed something else. It was late at night, around 11 p.m., when Daisy suddenly became agitated again. He had just gotten into bed, ready to sleep, when he heard the faintest sound, Daisy whimpering. Adam sat up, his heart racing. At first, he thought he might have imagined it, but then he heard it again, the sound of soft whimpers, like the puppy was in distress. Adam quickly got out of bed and went to the living room, where he found Daisy pacing in circles, her body tense, her fur bristling along her spine. She had backed herself into the corner of the room, shaking uncontrollably. Adam knelt down, trying to calm her, but she was beyond comfort. Her eyes were wide with fear, and her little body trembled like a leaf in the wind. He reached out slowly, trying to soothe her with his voice. "Daisy, it's okay. You're safe. You're not going anywhere." But Daisy didn't seem to hear him. She was lost in whatever terror had gripped her. She backed up further into the corner, her breathing quick and shallow, as if she was preparing to run. Adam's heart pounded in his chest. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. He had seen this before, dogs who had been abused or traumatized, but he had never seen it to this degree. Daisy wasn't just scared. She was terrified of something she couldn't explain. It was as if she had lived through horrors that Adam couldn't even begin to imagine. 4 hours that night, Adam stayed by her side, trying to comfort her, trying to bring her back from whatever dark place she had gone to. But no matter what he did, nothing seemed to work. Daisy didn't relax. She didn't eat. She didn't drink. She just sat there, staring at the wall, as if waiting for something to happen. The next morning, Adam knew he couldn't wait any longer. He had to get to the bottom of this. He had to understand what Daisy was running from. He called his vet and made an appointment to bring Daisy in for a full checkup. He needed to make sure she was healthy, but more importantly, he needed answers. What was causing her such fear? Could there be something physical, something that hadn't been noticed before? The vet's office was just a few miles away, but as Adam drove there, his mind raced. He couldn't shake the feeling that Daisy's past was more complicated than the simple case of abandonment. There was something deeper at play, something that had scarred her, something that was causing her to behave the way she did. When they arrived, the vet was kind and patient. Dr. Smith, a woman in her mid-40s, was known for her gentle approach with troubled animals. She'd helped many of the dogs in Adam's neighborhood, but when Adam explained Daisy's behavior, even Dr. Smith seemed taken aback. She examined Daisy carefully, taking her temperature, checking her pulse, and running a blood test to make sure everything was normal. After a thorough examination, Dr. Smith paused, looking at Daisy with a concerned expression. She cleared her throat. "There's something strange about this dog," she said softly. "Her health is fine, but I think there's something more going on here." Adam's heart sank. "What do you mean?" Dr. Smith gestured for Adam to sit down. "I think Daisy's fear goes beyond just being abandoned. There's something in her past, something that's left a mark on her emotionally." Adam's pulse quickened. "What are you suggesting?" Dr. Smith sighed, rubbing her chin thoughtfully. "I've seen dogs like Daisy before, dogs that have been through some kind of traumatic experience, something that leaves them scarred for life. And I'm afraid that's what we're dealing with here. She's likely been through a traumatic event, maybe even something that involved violence. It's not uncommon for dogs that have been through such experiences to act this way, hypervigilant, terrified of sudden movements, afraid of people getting too close." Adam felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "What kind of trauma are you talking about?" Dr. Smith hesitated before speaking again. "There's a possibility that Daisy might have been part of a dogfighting ring. It's not easy to tell, but her behavior, how she flinches at every noise, how she reacts to certain people, suggests that she was exposed to something extremely violent in her past." The words hit Adam like a punch to the gut. He couldn't imagine it. Daisy, a fighting dog. The idea felt wrong, out of place. She was so small, so fragile. But as Dr. Smith explained more about the signs, how Daisy flinched when touched in certain areas, how she instinctively cowered when loud noises occurred, it became clear. Daisy had been through something far darker than Adam had first realized. Adam's mind raced. What kind of person would do this to such an innocent creature? He thought about the sad little puppy he had found under the bench in the park, the one who had looked so lost, so desperate for comfort. He had assumed she was just abandoned, left to fend for herself. But this was more than that. Daisy hadn't just been abandoned, she had been used. The next few days after the vet visit felt like a whirlwind for Adam. His thoughts were consumed by Dr. Smith's words, echoing in his mind like a bad dream. She was part of a dogfighting ring. It's not uncommon for dogs like her to end up like this. The idea seemed impossible. Daisy, a sweet, innocent puppy, was never meant for violence. He could barely believe it. How could such a young dog, who still had so much life to give, be tied to something as cruel and inhumane as a dogfighting ring? The thought made him sick to his stomach, and yet, the more he thought about it, the more everything about her behavior started to make sense. The way she flinched at the smallest noise, the way she cowered whenever he moved too quickly. It wasn't just fear, it was trauma. The signs were clear now. Daisy had been through things that Adam could never have imagined. But even though he now understood the source of her pain, Adam found himself facing an entirely new set of challenges. What was he supposed to do now? He had rescued Daisy from the streets. Yes, but was he really saving her? Or was he just delaying the inevitable? Each night, Daisy's anxieties grew. When the sun set and darkness enveloped the house, she would start her pacing again, rounds and rounds around the living room, her eyes darting from corner to corner, her ears twitching at every sound. She wouldn't sleep, wouldn't settle down. Adam would sit with her for hours, trying to calm her down, speaking to her in soft tones. But each night was the same, and Adam was starting to realize something crucial. Daisy wasn't just running from her past, she was running from something else, something that was out there, something that was still chasing her. One night, around midnight, when the house was quiet, Adam was awakened by a strange sound. It wasn't Daisy's usual whimpering, but something else, a tapping, slow and rhythmic. It came from the window. Adam's heart skipped a beat. He sat up in bed, straining his ears, but everything was still. He tried to shake it off, thinking it was just the wind or a branch scraping against the glass. But then he heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from outside. His stomach churned. He didn't know what to think. Maybe it was just a bird, a small creature. But something in the back of his mind told him that it wasn't. He glanced over at Daisy's crate, and his eyes narrowed. She was awake, her body stiff, her eyes wide with fear, staring directly at the window. She was trembling, but not from the cold. Adam could see the panic in her gaze, as if she knew something was out there, something she was desperately afraid of. With slow, deliberate steps, Adam got out of bed and walked toward the window. As he drew closer, he could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The tapping had stopped, but the silence in the room was almost deafening. The air felt thick, like something was about to happen. When he pulled back the curtain and looked outside, he didn't see anything at first, just the dark street, illuminated faintly by a street lamp in the distance. But as his eyes adjusted to the night, he saw movement. In the shadows of the trees, just beyond the streetlight, there was a figure, a person, standing still, just outside the edge of his yard. Adam's heart pounded in his chest. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching. Adam couldn't see their face, but he could feel their eyes on him, like a cold, suffocating presence. His breath caught in his throat. The tapping started again. This time, it was louder, more urgent. Adam's hand trembled as he gripped the window frame. "Who's there?" he muttered under his breath. No response. He glanced back at Daisy. She was still trembling, her eyes fixed on the window. It was as if she knew the person outside. It wasn't just fear. It was recognition. Adam's stomach twisted. Without thinking, he reached for his phone and dialed 911. His fingers shook as he pressed the numbers, but he knew he had to act quickly. He couldn't take any chances. Whoever was out there, whatever they wanted, he wasn't going to let them get to Daisy. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice crackled through the line. There's someone outside my house. They're standing by the window, and they've been tapping on the glass, Adam said, his voice shaky. I don't know who they are, but my dog, she's terrified. Please send someone. The operator assured him help was on the way, but as Adam looked back at the window, the figure was gone, vanished. The street was empty once again. Minutes later, the sound of sirens filled the air. Adam rushed outside, his heart still racing, but by the time the police arrived, the figure was nowhere to be found. They searched the area, but found nothing. No sign of anyone near his house. No footprints, no broken branches. It was as if the person had never been there. Adam's mind was reeling. Had he imagined it? Was it a figment of his overactive imagination, fueled by his fear for Daisy? He didn't know, but the more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that something was going on. Someone was after Daisy, someone who knew exactly where she was. The police told Adam that they couldn't do much without more information. No one had been seen on the security cameras, and there were no signs of forced entry. It was frustrating, but Adam couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. This wasn't just an ordinary case of a stray puppy being abandoned. This was something far bigger, something dangerous. The next day, Adam tried to go about his life as usual. He fed Daisy, took her for walks, and tried to keep her calm. But every time he looked at her, every time he saw the way she flinched or looked over her shoulder, he couldn't stop thinking about what had happened last night. Who was the person outside his house? And why did Daisy react the way she did? That evening, Adam decided to take Daisy for a walk in the park. Maybe the fresh air would help her calm down. Maybe it would help him clear his head. As they walked, Adam kept his eyes peeled, scanning the surroundings, but everything seemed normal. The park was empty, save for a few distant joggers. Daisy trotted beside him, her leash loosely held in his hand, but she was still alert, her ears pricked up, her nose twitching with every new scent. As they approached the far end of the park, near the abandoned playground where he had first found Daisy, she suddenly stopped. Adam noticed it immediately. Her body stiffened, her tail went rigid, her eyes darted toward the old swing set, where the chain swayed in the wind. And then, she did something Adam had never seen her do before. She growled. It wasn't the playful bark of a dog warning someone away. It was deep, low, and full of warning. Adam felt his pulse quicken. He crouched down beside her. "What is it, girl? What's wrong?" But Daisy didn't respond. She just continued to growl, her body tense, her eyes locked on the swing set. Adam's heart was racing. He looked around but saw nothing. No one was there, just the empty swings, swaying in the breeze. But Daisy's reaction told him everything he needed to know. Someone was out there, and Daisy knew it. Adam felt the weight of Daisy's growl in the air, thick and heavy with warning. For a moment, the park seemed to shrink around him. The sounds of distant joggers, the rustling of the trees, the normal hum of the evening, everything faded as the low rumble in Daisy's chest echoed through the silence. She was no longer the timid, fragile puppy he had rescued from the street. This was something else. This was the dog she used to be, the one who had survived the horrors of her past, the one who was still fighting, even if she didn't fully understand what or who she was up against. Adam stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end as he scanned the darkening park. The swing set swayed in the wind, but there was no one there. No movement, no sign of life. The park, which had always been a place of calm, suddenly felt like a trap. He reached out, gently pulling on Daisy's leash, but she wouldn't budge. She was rooted to the spot, staring at the empty playground with an intensity that made Adam's skin crawl. He knelt down beside her, whispering her name softly. "Daisy, it's okay. We're safe here, I promise." But Daisy wasn't listening. Her body was tense, her eyes wide with fear, and Adam realized that something was far more wrong than he had anticipated. The growling continued, low and steady, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the ground. "Come on, girl," Adam urged, tugging the leash once more. But instead of walking away, Daisy began to back up, her growls growing louder, almost panicked now. She wasn't just afraid, she was desperate. "Daisy, it's okay," Adam repeated, but he could feel the tremble in his own voice. The uncertainty was creeping in. There was something out there, something that Daisy knew, something that made her react this way. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the growling stopped. Daisy's body went stiff as a board. She stood still, her entire form rigid, as if listening intently to something Adam couldn't hear. The park felt utterly silent, almost unnaturally so. Adam's instinct screamed at him to leave, to get out of there and back to the safety of his home. But he couldn't. Daisy wasn't ready to leave, and he wasn't going to abandon her now. Without warning, Daisy took off running, her leash snapping taut in Adam's hand. He barely managed to keep up with her as she dashed toward the distant playground, her eyes locked on something that Adam couldn't see. The swing set creaked in the wind, the chain swaying with an eerie rhythm, as if they were calling her closer. "Daisy, no," Adam called out, but the puppy was faster. She was moving with an urgency Adam had never seen before, like a creature possessed. She wasn't running for play or curiosity. She was running for something or someone. In a frantic panic, Adam chased after her, his mind racing with possibilities. What was she sensing that he couldn't? Why was she so afraid? But as he approached the swings, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A shadow, just beyond the light of the nearby street lamp, moved with a deliberate pace. It was a figure, tall, hooded, standing still, watching. Adam's breath caught in his throat. The figure wasn't just a person. It wasn't just some jogger passing by. No, this was someone who was waiting for something or someone to come to them. "Hey," Adam shouted, his voice louder than he intended. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure didn't respond. Instead, they stepped back into the darkness, vanishing into the night like a ghost. Adam's heart raced as he looked down at Daisy. She had stopped running. She stood still, her body trembling but now silent. She wasn't growling anymore, but her eyes never left the spot where the figure had stood. She was watching, waiting. "Daisy," Adam called softly, his voice trembling as he kneeled beside her. "What's going on? Who was that?" But Daisy didn't answer. She just stood there, her eyes wide and fixated, as if the shadow had told her something he couldn't hear. For the first time, Adam truly realized that Daisy wasn't just a dog with a troubled past. She was a dog on the run, and whatever she was running from was coming for her. The thought chilled him to his bones. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed the beginning of something much darker. He had rescued Daisy from the streets, yes, but in doing so, he had unknowingly brought her into a storm that was far from over. His thoughts were interrupted by a faint rustling in the bushes behind him. Adam looked around, his heart thudding in his chest. There was no one there, nothing, just the wind. But Daisy, still tense, turned her head toward the rustling, her eyes wide. She wasn't just alert anymore, she was panicked. She had heard something Adam couldn't, something that made her retreat into herself, pulling away from him even more. As Adam walked back to his car, trying to calm Daisy down, the weight of the situation finally hit him. Daisy's past wasn't just a series of unfortunate events. It wasn't just about being abandoned and left to fend for herself. There was something far worse, something that had followed her into this new life, something that had followed her here, to this park, to this moment. The person, or thing, that was watching them was not someone Adam could protect Daisy from. It was part of the world Daisy had come from, the world of underground fighting rings, dark alleys, and cold-hearted people who saw animals as nothing more than tools to be used. Adam's grip on Daisy's leash tightened as he looked down at her, her fur still bristling with fear. She wasn't just afraid of her past. She was afraid of what was still out there. And if Daisy's past was coming for her, then it was coming for Adam too. By the time Adam reached his car, he knew one thing for sure. Daisy's secret wasn't just something in her past. It was something alive, something that was still hunting her. And now it was hunting him too. As Adam drove back home, the weight of everything began to settle on his chest. Daisy, who had been so calm on the way to the park, was now trembling in the back seat. He couldn't blame her. What he had witnessed tonight, what he had sensed in the air, was enough to rattle anyone. That figure in the park, the one who had been watching them, was no ordinary stranger. And Daisy, terrified as she was, had known it. She'd known something was coming, something neither of them was prepared for. The drive back home felt like it took forever. Adam kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that shadowy figure following them, a haunting presence at the edge of the streetlights. But when he reached his house, he breathed a small sigh of relief. For now they were safe, or so he thought. Once inside, Adam tried to get Daisy settled in the living room, but she wouldn't settle. She paced the room restlessly, glancing toward the door every few moments as if she expected someone to walk in. Her eyes were wide, her fur bristling, and her breathing was shallow, heavy with the weight of whatever was haunting her. Adam tried to call her over to him, to comfort her, but she only flinched. Her trust in him was still fragile, and every movement he made seemed to add to her anxiety. It wasn't just fear, it was a deep-rooted terror, and no matter how many times Adam whispered reassurances to her, it wasn't enough to calm her. Frustration began to build inside of him. He had done everything right. He had rescued her from the streets, given her food, shelter, and love, but it felt like it was never going to be enough. It wasn't just about providing a safe space for her anymore. There was something more, something bigger, that neither he nor Daisy could outrun. Adam glanced at the clock on the wall. It was nearly 2 a.m. His mind buzzed with 1,000 thoughts. He needed to figure out what was happening. He needed answers. But who could he turn to? The police had been of no help. They couldn't find anything outside his house. There had been no sign of anyone following him, no clues to follow. They had simply left him with a vague sense of unease and an empty promise to be on alert. The thing that bothered him the most was the figure in the park. Whoever they weren't some random stranger. They were part of Daisy's past. Whether they had been there in the flesh or whether their presence had lingered, Adam didn't know. But Daisy knew them. She recognized them. That's why she had reacted the way she did. She wasn't just afraid of a person. She was afraid of being found. Adam's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sound, a sharp, almost deafening knock on the door. The noise sent a shockwave through his body. His heart skipped a beat. He hadn't been expecting anyone at this hour. His first thought was that the figure from the park had somehow found him. had come to finish what they started. His gut told him this was no coincidence. Whatever Daisy's past was, it was catching up to them. He hesitated for a moment, wondering whether he should call the police or just ignore the knock. But the sound came again, louder this time. Bang, bang, bang. There was no mistaking it. Whoever it was wasn't going away. Daisy's reaction was immediate. Her body went rigid, her growl returning, low and deep. Her eyes were fixed on the door, her tail tucked under her, her muscles coiled like a spring ready to snap. Adam's hand shook as he reached for the door handle, but before he could open it, the doorbell rang, a long, drawn-out chime that sent a chill down his spine. "Who is it?" Adam called, his voice shaking. He wasn't even sure if he was asking the person outside or trying to calm his own nerves, but there was no answer, just silence, thick and suffocating. He couldn't wait any longer. He needed to know who was out there. Taking a deep breath, he stepped cautiously toward the door, his eyes darting to the living room to check on Daisy. She had stopped growling but was still fixated on the door, her eyes locked with a mixture of fear and recognition. Adam's hand reached for the door handle, his fingers trembling as he gripped it. With one final look at Daisy, he slowly turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing nothing but the dark, empty porch. There was no one in sight. Confused, Adam stepped outside, his heart still racing. He looked left, then right, but the street was quiet. No figures standing in the shadows, no cars parked along the curb, just an empty street under the harsh glow of the street lamp. But then, as his eyes scanned the ground, something caught his attention. A small object lay on the porch step, half hidden beneath the mat. Adam crouched down, his pulse quickening as he reached for it. As soon as his fingers brushed against the object, he froze. It was a collar, a worn, faded leather collar with a tag attached to it. Adam's heart pounded in his chest as he carefully picked it up. The tag was worn, the letters almost illegible, but as he squinted, he could make out a name. Daisy. His blood ran cold. It was her collar, the same collar he had imagined belonged to the puppy he had found on that fateful day in the park. But why was it here? Why had someone left it on his doorstep? Was this a warning? Or worse, was it a sign that whoever had been hunting Daisy had found her? A cold gust of wind swept past him, and for a split second, Adam felt like he wasn't alone. It was as if the night had swallowed up the world around him, leaving him standing in a void, with only the collar in his hand and the beating of his own heart echoing in his ears. Behind him, Daisy barked, sharp, frantic, and full of terror. Adam whipped around, his breath catching in his throat as he saw her. She was staring into the darkness of the yard, her hackles raised, her eyes wide and filled with dread. The fear was overwhelming. "Who is it, Daisy? What is it?" Adam whispered, his voice barely audible over the rising panic in his chest. And then, from the shadows beyond the porch, a figure emerged. It was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a hood that obscured his face. Adam could barely make out the details, but something about him felt eerily familiar, as if he had seen him before. He stood still, his eyes fixed on Adam, and for the first time in his life, Adam understood true fear. This wasn't just a man. This wasn't just a stranger. This was someone who knew exactly who Daisy was, someone who had come for her. The man took a step forward, and Daisy let out a low, guttural growl, one that sent a chill down Adam's spine. She was ready to protect, but it was clear that this wasn't just any threat. This was the threat. The man spoke, his voice low, calm, but laced with menace. "She's mine, you know. You can't hide her forever." Adam's blood froze. "She's mine." The words echoed in his mind as the man stepped closer. The realization hit like a freight train. This man wasn't just some random passerby. He was part of Daisy's past, part of the nightmare that Adam had been trying to protect her from. And now, the nightmare had found them. The man took another step forward, his dark figure towering in the dim light, moving like a shadow that had come to life. Daisy's growl grew louder, more intense. But this time, it wasn't just fear. It was the growl of an animal who was ready to fight for her life. She stood between Adam and the stranger, her body tense, her eyes locked onto the man with a hatred that seemed to burn deeper than any fear she had shown before. Adam took a step back, his heart racing in his chest. "Who are you?" His voice was shaky, barely more than a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might make this nightmare even worse. He had no idea who this man was, but one thing was clear. He had an undeniable claim on Daisy, and Adam wasn't ready to let her go. The man didn't answer right away. He just stood there, watching Adam with those cold, unreadable eyes. The silence stretched on, each second feeling like an eternity. Adam's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation, but the more he thought, the more he realized just how little he knew about Daisy's past. I said, who are you? Adam demanded again, this time with more force in his voice. His hands clenched into fists, his body shaking with both fear and fury. He wasn't going to let some stranger take Daisy back, not after everything they had been through together. The man's lips curled into a small, almost cruel smile. You really don't know, do you? His voice was low, like he was savoring every word. You think you've rescued her, that she's just some lost puppy. But you're wrong. She's mine, and I'm here to take her back. Daisy growled again, a low, vibrating sound that sent a shiver down Adam's spine. She was ready to fight. Adam could see it in her eyes. This was no ordinary dog fight. This was a battle for survival. But Adam wasn't going to let that happen. He wasn't going to let Daisy go through that again. Not after everything she had been through. Why? What did you do to her? Adam's voice cracked, the anger and fear overwhelming him. He wanted answers. He needed to understand. Who was this man? And why did he have such a hold on Daisy? The man took another slow step forward, his boots crunching against the gravel on Adam's porch. What I did to her doesn't matter, he said, almost dismissively. What matters is what you've done to her. You've given her false hope, fooled her into thinking she's safe. But she's not. Not with you. Adam shook his head, his heart thudding painfully against his ribcage. I've given her hope. I've given her safety. I've given her a home. The man's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold indifference. She's been through things you can't imagine, things that you couldn't begin to understand. You think you've saved her, but you've only delayed the inevitable. She belongs with me. She's part of my world, a world you can't protect her from. The words hit Adam like a slap to the face. Part of my world. He didn't understand. What was this world? What kind of life had Daisy come from? Daisy's body remained stiff, her growl never faltering, but Adam could see the tremors running through her. She didn't want to go back to this man. That much was clear. And yet, this stranger seemed to hold some kind of dark power over her, a power that Adam couldn't fight with his bare hands. Adam stepped in front of Daisy, blocking her from the man's view. His muscles were tight, every instinct telling him to protect her, to keep her safe. You're not taking her anywhere, he said, his voice firm, though his heart was pounding. The man's eyes flashed, his gaze turning from cold amusement to something more dangerous. He stepped closer, his hand moving toward his jacket pocket. You don't have a choice. You're too deep in this. You can't protect her from what's coming. Before Adam could react, the man pulled something out of his pocket, a small, silver key. He held it up, dangling it in front of Adam's face. This, the man said, his voice low, is the key to Daisy's past. And it's the key to your future too. I'll let you keep her for now, but only on one condition. Adam's breath hitched. What are you talking about? The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took another step forward, closing the distance between them. His expression remained unchanged, unreadable. You're not the first person to try and save a dog like her. There have been others. People who thought they could protect them. People who tried to give them the love they've been denied. But you know what happens to people who get too close. Adam's mind was racing, trying to make sense of his words. What was the man saying? Who else had tried to save Daisy? The stranger stepped back, his hands moving slowly toward his jacket. This isn't just about a dog. This is about power, Adam. You're part of a game now, and you'll learn, sooner or later, that no one wins against the people who play it. Adam's hands balled into fists, but he couldn't speak. He didn't understand any of this. The fear he had felt earlier was now replaced by something darker, something far more chilling, a realization that the world he had entered with Daisy was far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The man turned, as if he had already made up his mind about what was going to happen. I'll be back for her. Don't think you can hide her forever. And with that, he was gone. Adam stood frozen, the key still hanging in the air like a symbol of everything he didn't understand. Daisy's growls had stopped, and in their place was a silence that felt like the calm before a storm. She was still trembling, but now it wasn't just fear. It was a recognition, an understanding that whatever had happened to her before, whatever had shaped her past, was coming back to claim her. And Adam wasn't sure if he could stop it. The weight of what had just happened settled on Adam's shoulders, like a heavy stone. His mind was a whirlwind of questions, confusion, and fear. The man, whoever he was, had made it clear that this wasn't over. Daisy wasn't just a lost puppy. She was a part of something much darker, something far more dangerous than Adam could have ever imagined. And now, the storm that had been chasing her was finally here. With the stranger's warning still fresh in his mind, Adam realized that he was no longer just protecting a dog. He was protecting someone with a past far darker and more twisted than he could have ever guessed. Daisy's trauma had shaped her in ways Adam couldn't fully understand, and now, that trauma was about to consume him too. The man's threat wasn't just an empty one. Adam felt it in his bones. Whoever he was, whatever this game was, Adam had just become a player. The key the man had shown him wasn't just a literal object. It was a symbol of everything he didn't know about Daisy's past, a past that was coming back to claim her. And now, he had no choice but to fight, not just for Daisy's future, but for his own. The night dragged on in a blur of confusion and fear. Adam couldn't shake the words of the man who had come to his doorstep. "She belongs with me." The cold finality in the stranger's voice lingered in the air like a shadow, one that refused to leave. The warning was clear. Daisy's past wasn't something he could protect her from. And worse, it was a past that was coming for them both. In the days that followed, Adam tried to continue life as usual. But every time he looked at Daisy, he couldn't ignore the feeling that they were being watched. He couldn't explain it, but it was as if the eyes of the world were on them, waiting for them to make a mistake. Daisy was still terrified, her nervous habits more pronounced now, her eyes constantly darting to the corners of the room, scanning for threats Adam couldn't see. Daisy's behavior was becoming more erratic, too. She wouldn't sleep for hours at a time, pacing back and forth, the same restless energy consuming her every moment. Adam tried everything he could think of to help her feel safe, but nothing worked. And no matter how much he tried to comfort her, the truth was that Daisy wasn't just afraid of her past. She was afraid of being found. Adam was beginning to understand just how dangerous the world Daisy had come from really was. It wasn't just a matter of abandonment or neglect. It was a world that had taken her, broken her, and now wanted her back. But Adam wasn't about to let that happen. One morning, after another sleepless night, Adam decided it was time to take action. He had to find out who this man really was, who had come into his life with such chilling intent. He needed to know what kind of game was being played. What was this world that Daisy had come from, and why was it trying to drag her back into it? With Daisy by his side, Adam made the decision to take her back to the park where he had first found her, the place that had marked the beginning of their journey together. The park, once a place of refuge, now felt like the starting point of something much darker. It was there that he had found her, and it was there that he would have to face whatever was haunting her. As Adam and Daisy arrived, the park was eerily quiet. The playground stood empty, the swing swaying in the breeze, their creaking sound now a reminder of the strange and terrifying events that had unfolded. Adam's heart pounded in his chest as he led Daisy toward the same corner of the park where he had first seen her, her fur matted, her eyes wide with fear. Daisy seemed to recognize the place too. She began to pull on the leash, her pace quickening, her body taut with anticipation. It was as if she was bracing herself for something. Adam couldn't help but wonder if this was where her past was going to catch up to them. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around, and there, standing at the edge of the park, was the man, the same man who had come to his doorstep, the one who had claimed Daisy as his own. He was standing still, watching them, a grim expression on his face. "Why are you following me?" Adam asked, his voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline rushing through his veins. He wasn't afraid anymore, not of this man, not of what Daisy's past held. He had made a promise to her, and he was going to keep it. The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he took a step closer, his eyes fixed on Daisy. She stood beside Adam, her fur bristling, her eyes narrowed with distrust. "You think you can keep her, don't you?" the man said, his voice cold, devoid of emotion. "You think you can save her from what she was born into, but you're wrong." Adam took a deep breath, standing tall in front of Daisy. "I didn't save her from anything," he said, his voice firm. "I gave her a chance at a life she deserves, and I'm not going to let you take that from her." The man's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a sneer. "You really don't understand, do you? She's not like the other dogs you've saved. She's not some innocent creature you can just love into submission. She's part of something much bigger, Adam, something you'll never be able to control." Adam's heart clenched as he watched the man. This wasn't just about Daisy. It was about power, control, and the dark world of the underground fighting rings he had been unwittingly drawn into. Daisy was a symbol of something much darker, and this man, whoever he was, wanted her back. "I'll never let you take her," Adam said, his voice unwavering. "You may have hurt her once, but you'll never hurt her again. I won't let that happen." For a moment, the man said nothing. The two of them stood in silence, the wind rustling through the trees, the tension between them palpable. Then, without warning, the man turned and began to walk away, his footsteps slow and deliberate. "You think you've won," the man called over his shoulder, "but you've only bought yourself time. I'll be back, and next time, you won't be able to protect her." Adam watched as the man disappeared into the shadows, the weight of his words sinking in. But in that moment, Adam knew something crucial. He had already won. He had already given Daisy something she had never had before, a life worth living, a future where she didn't have to fear the past. As Adam turned to Daisy, he knelt down beside her, his heart swelling with emotion. She had been through so much, and yet, here she was, alive, free, and with him. No one could take that away from her, and no matter what the man had said, Adam knew one thing for sure. He would protect Daisy, for as long as it took. Daisy looked up at him, her eyes softening as she approached him. She nuzzled against him, the bond between them stronger than ever. It wasn't just a rescue. It wasn't just about saving her from the streets. It was about something much deeper. It was about giving her the chance to be who she was meant to be, a dog who deserved love, freedom, and a future. Adam smiled, his heart full as he stroked her fur. "We're in this together, Daisy, you and me, and no one's ever going to take you away from me." The man's shadow still loomed over them, but in that moment, it didn't matter. Daisy had found her place in the world, and Adam had found his purpose. Together, they were stronger than any past, stronger than any fear, and for the first time in days, Adam felt a sense of peace settle over him. The storm that had been chasing them was still out there, but it no longer mattered, because in this moment, Adam knew one thing beyond a doubt: they were finally free. As Adam and Daisy walked away from the park, the sun began to set in the distance, casting a golden hue over the world. It wasn't the end of their journey, but it was a new beginning. They had faced the darkness together and come out the other side stronger. And as they walked into their future, hand in paw, Adam knew that no matter what came next, they would face it as a team. If you believe every pet deserves a second chance, hit that like button and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. And don't forget to share Daisy's journey with someone who needs a reminder of the power of love and rescue. See you in the next video.